A common scenario involving dates and times involves performing mathematical operations on date and time values themselves. So for example, given a particular date, you might want to calculate a date in the future or the past relative to that date. And we can use the timedelta class in Python to help us with this. So that's what we're going to look at in this example. Here in my editor, I'm going to open up timedeltas_start. And you can see I've already imported some of the modules and classes I'm going to need. So in order to use timedeltas, we first need to import the correct class from the datetime package. So let's do that first. So from datetime, I'm going to import the timedelta class. And a timedelta is basically a span of time. It's not a particular date, it's not a particular time, it's an amount of time. And you can use this class to perform time-based math. So let's take a look at some examples. First, to construct a timedelta, all you need to do is create the timedelta class and then pass in the amount of time that you want the delta to represent. So I'll do something really simple. I'll create a timedelta, and I'm going to pass in some parameters. There's different properties you can pass in. I'm going to specify the number of days should be 365, and then it's going to be 5 hours, and minutes is going to be equal to 1. Okay, so I'm creating a timedelta that represents 365 days, 5 hours, and 1 minute, and I'm going to print that out. So let's go ahead and run this. Right, and you can see that, sure enough, there's my timedelta right there. It's 365 days, 5 hours, and 1 minute. So let's use today's date as a reference for the next few operations. So I'll create a variable called now, and I'll set that to the result of datetime.now, and then I'll print out today is, and that's going to be now. So we've got today's date and time. Let's use a timedelta to figure out what today's date will be 1 year from now. So we'll print out 1 year from now, it will be, and then I'm going to print out, I'm going to use the stir function to convert the result into a string. So I'm going to add now plus a timedelta, and the timedelta is going to be days equals 365. So I'm going to create a timedelta of 1 year. Close down the tab so we have some more room. So let's go ahead and try that. All right, and so sure enough, we have today is, here's this date, and we can see that 1 year from now, it's going to be in 2022 on the same date. Okay, so let's keep on going and see what else we can do. I'm going to close that terminal. So I'm going to create a timedelta with more than one argument. I'm going to print in 2 weeks and 3 days it will be, and then once again, I'm going to use the stir function to convert this to a result, and I'll write now plus timedelta, and I'm going to set weeks equals 2 and days equals 3. Okay, so in this case, I'm constructing a timedelta of 2 weeks and 3 days, adding that to the current date. So let's go ahead and try that out. So I'll run this again. All right, so let's see. Today, it's October 4. So let's see, 2 weeks and 3 days. Well, 2 weeks is 14 days, right? So if you add 14 to 4, that's 18, plus 3 more days, that's 21st. Yeah, so sure enough, 2 weeks from today, 2 weeks and 3 days, it's going to be October 21st. All right, let's keep on going. So I'll close this terminal. Next, let's try a date calculation that uses a date in the past. And let's also use what we've already learned from a previous video to use string format codes. So I'll create a variable named t, and I'll get datetime.now, and we're going to subtract off a timedelta where weeks is equal to 1. So I'll subtract off a week, and then I'll have an s variable that's going to call the stirftime function. And stirftime, I'm going to pass in my formatting string. So %a, and then %b, and then %d for the day number, and then the full digit year is going to be a %y. And then I'll print 1 week ago, it was s. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and run that. And, oh, whoops, error in my code right there. So what I need to do is not use this equal sign, it's a minus sign. Okay, there we go. So let's run this. Okay, so it says 1 week ago, it was Monday, September 27th. Okay, great. So now I've used time deltas to work on times both in the future and in the past. So let's take a look at one more interesting example. What I'm going to do is comment out all these previous examples I've done so far. All right, Control/. So let's do this. Let's write a script that's going to count how many days it is until the next April Fool's Day. So I'll start by getting today's date. And then next, I'll construct a date that represents April Fool's Day. So AFD for April Fool's Day is going to be equal to, I'm going to call the date constructor, and I'll pass in today's year, and then 4, that's the month of April, and then 1 for the first day. So now I have to use date comparison to see if April Fool's Day has already gone by, because if it has, I need to get the next April Fool's Day. So if April Fool's Day is less than today, then I'm going to print out April Fool's Day already went by, and let's print out the number of days that went by. So I'll subtract off today minus AFD, right, dot days, okay? And I'm going to put all of that in parentheses. All right. And then I need to replace the current year with next year. So I need to get next year's April Fool's Day. So I'm going to set AFD equal to AFD.replace. I'm going to replace the year with today's year plus 1. So now I just need to subtract the April Fool's Day date from today to create a time delta result. So time to AFD is equal to my April Fool's date that I just calculated minus today. And then I'll print it is time to AFD.days, and I'll say days until the next April Fool's Day. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. And you can see that in this case, April Fool's Day already went by 186 days ago, which means it is now 179 days until the next April Fool's Day. So you can see that by using time deltas, you can do some pretty advanced and complex date calculations using just the built-in standard classes that Python gives you.